Hello, and welcome back to K-Drama Rants. My name is Melanie, and I like to rant about K-dramas. Today, we're talking about part 4 of Mr. Sunshine. If you're new here, I cover K-dramas and have a podcast with finished shows that you can go back and listen to anywhere you listen to podcasts. Last week, we got whiplash from Ishin and Eugene's will they, won't they relationship. They decided they will, in secret. Hee-sung is slowly climbing the ranks to become my favorite male lead. Dongmi is unfortunately giving won't make it to the end of the show energy, and we're rooting for Hina to get out from under her father's thumb. So I was wrong. The sea that Eugene and Ishin go to is real. They just have to go through fields first, where Ishin loses her hat. Surprising that Eugene's hat didn't also fall off, probably more likely to fall now that he's given it to a woman with a smaller head than him so she can cover her hair. Eugene and Ishin go east to see the sea, which lasts days. Days. How did a noblewoman spend days riding with a man, unaccompanied? They sit on the beach. Eugene tells her more about how hard it was to live in the US as an Asian boy and how thankful he was for Joseph, who kind of took him in. He feeds her some canned food and coffee, which she finds delicious now, probably just because she's with Eugene. Her surrogate parents stay back home and cover for her. They're such cutie patooties. Hina goes to the everything store from the Tweedles. She's ordered more posters to be made of her mother, but this time she's here to request that they learn to forge Dr. Matsuyama's signature. We don't know what for yet. She then goes drinking where Dongmi usually drinks, and she is throwing him back. Dongmi finds her, but he sits apart from her to wait her out and carry her home once she's done. My heart. I love this man so much. Eugene gets back to the hotel after visiting the sea. He tries to avoid Kyle, who is drinking alone in the dining room, but he can't disobey a direct order from Kyle and sits with him when Kyle beckons him. Kyle wonders where he's been, but it doesn't seem like he knows what's going on. Neither of them is too happy with Minister Allen now that he's around, and Kyle tells Eugene that they're doing firearm care tomorrow. In the morning, Eugene hurries over to the everything shop. He needs 3 bullets. When he gets there, both of the men answer the door at the same time, looking quite disheveled from being woken up early. At the same time. Were they mayhaps sleeping together? When Eugene presents his gun to Kyle, he's fully loaded, which directly contradicts his statement that he fired 3 rounds in the shootout with a Japanese soldier. Once again, his punishment is to don his full gear and run around the legation. Hee-sung runs into his dad, who is plotting to run into Wanik and make an auspicious introduction to get his son a job with Wanik. Hee-sung does not care for any of it. His dad ropes him in though, and he makes their rickshaw puller bump into Wanik's rickshaw. He introduces his son to Wanik, and Wanik is uninterested until he learns the family name, which is associated with wealth, and that Hee-sung is staying at the Glory Hotel. Hee-sung's dad doesn't let his son speak at all the entire interaction. Wanik asks if Hee-sung is married. He's still trying to find Hina a husband. Ishin gives Sumi a roll of silk fabric so that she can make a vest for Domi. This is her way of thanking the girl for unknowingly helping out Joseon. She takes her to eat castella cake in order to give her the fabric, where she learns from the child that she's been holding a knife and fork in the wrong hands. Sumi had worked for the Logan house, so she knows how to hold these utensils. Sumi makes the vest and gives it to Domi. And Domi runs into the legation in his new snazzy blue silk vest where he's fawned upon by Kyle, Eugene, and Guanzu. They're so cute together. Domi is learning English too and is tasked by Guanzu to take Eugene to teach him how to read Korean. At English school, Ishin volunteers to run an errand for the school at the US legation. She gets there and tries to get the soldiers' attention, but they ignore her. Eugene finds her and tells her that she should say, "Excuse me," moving forward and not "come here" if she needs to do that again. She gives him the note and she charges him with taking it to a Captain Robert. It's a list of school supplies. Tomi finds Eugene for something, I don't remember what it is. Tomi and Ishin clown on Eugene for being unable to read Korean yet. Look, I'm not saying that being slow to learn is bad. We all learn at the rate at which we learn. However, for a man who can read 3 writing systems already, the writing system for his mother tongue should not be taking this long, especially since he's kept his entire vocabulary from when he was 6. Haman watches everyone giggle together about Eugene being slow to learn, and it causes her a lot of worry. Her mistress is letting herself fall for a man who is not the man to whom she is betrothed. Lady Cho, Ishin's aunt, gets drunk in her room with Haman. In Vino Veritas, she compares Esan and Ishin. She definitely prefers Ishin. Esan's even plundered her rings to cover her debts, and she spends frivolously, so Ishin is the golden child. This seems like an easy problem to solve in terms of stopping Esan from stealing from the family. Like, y'all have money to pay someone to keep an eye on Esan and keep her home without spending. And immediately after I had that thought, the show was like, bet. Esan's home life is trash. Her husband, Dokmun, has a concubine who actually had a son with him. So he treats Esan like trash. He beats her and is really only using her for her connections. No wonder she's filling the hole in her life with gambling. The man who was pulling Wonek's rickshaw earlier when he sung and his dad bumped into him, he goes to Hina to sell her the information of the meeting. The Japanese legation interpreter takes Kwansu to Hwaolu, the bar/brothel that Dongme now runs. Tokmun is offering to pay for information on the US legation. Kwansu's probably too loyal for that, but it was funny to see him be uncomfy around the geishas. Meanwhile, Kojong is tweaking. He thinks everyone in his palace is working for Japan, and he's convinced himself that he needs help from the US to build a railroad line. Tong looks unhappy about this, but what's he gonna do? Eugene and Ishin exchange notes in the apothecary. They agree to walk to the Potter together. Eugene goes with a bag of Western beer. Unsan pretends he's unsatisfied with them, so Ishin requests a taste, but Unsan will not part with them. She calls him petty, which makes Eugene realize that she has no idea what the extent of the righteous army network is. After they leave, Unsan wonders to himself, why would she keep the company of the worry man if the river's frozen, like the man to row her over? I wonder why. Ishin and Eugene walk back together. He must interrupt their otherwise jovial time to ask about the traitor's picture. Can Ishin recognize who of the men is her father? She says she does through her tears. She's never seen him before, but I guess she's supposed to look a lot like him, which makes it easy to identify who looks like her. She tells him that once he's done with his investigation, she must talk with the traitor. He's the only person she can ask about her parents. Well, that's not true. He's the one you can ask about your mom, but you've met your dad's entire family. Like, you know what your dad's like. Haengnang is bade to go to the paper store tomorrow. He must purchase a lot, so he should take someone else. On his way back, he should find where Hee-sung is staying. Seems like Grandpa wants this marriage over and done with. A man goes to exchange Japanese notes at the everything store. The men will not do it. They're patriots, so they can't. But once the man leaves, they check to see the price of gold. Smart. Back at the dojo, Dongme is asked whether he should call back a member of Mushin because he sticks out in the area where he's been posted. Dongme refuses, and I think his right-hand man is getting sick and tired of Dongme. Hee-sung arrives at the hotel where Eshin's grandpa is waiting for him inside his room. He's there to ask Hee-sung to marry Eshin. Knowing that she has eyes for someone else, Hee-sung tries to decline. He counts the ways in which he is not to his taste, but Grandpa was expecting this. He knows Eshin is strong-willed, so he asks Hee-sung to reconsider loving these things about her instead. Turns out, the reason Grandpa wanted so much paper was to send out a call to action to the scholars of Chosun. Chosun must band together to stop Japan from taking over. Wanek reads this letter and is quite upset that this old man may be ruining his plans, but the postmaster is in Wanek's pocket and burns all the letters at Wanek's command. He seems really struck by the fact that Sahong signed it Songbek Go Sahong. I tried to look it up, but I could not figure out why it would be significant. All I could find was a manga or a manhwa. I have no idea where it comes from. Dongme pulls up to the harbor where U.S. soldiers under Eugene's supervision are unloading resources from the U.S. TBH, without Hee-sung around, they really don't display that much animosity toward each other. Dongme has a drink with some white man. He says they should strengthen the security of the construction sites. The Japanese mob is sabotaging the railroad track that they're laying down. I don't know, man. If someone really wanted to, they'd just wait until you moved on to lay more tracks, right? Like they could just take the old ones out. I don't know how you're gonna fix this. Joseph's finally back in town and visits the U.S. legation, but Eugene is in Temulpo, so he leaves Domi the task to hand him something. Kwon-soo comes clean about the money Dokmun offered him to Eugene, and Eugene tells him to take it, actually. He'd rather Kwon-soo have it than someone else at the office. I'm sure he also wants to feed them false info. Eshin got a letter from the Temulpo temple. Her allies there want to warn her that Dongme stopped by. She sends Hina a missive to meet at the cake spot again. She wants to borrow money from Hina to pay Dongme. Hina makes her see that he's not making a date with her for her money. He just wants her. So, Ishin goes to the dojo with a sweaty Dongme. They did not have to have his karategi half open. They knew what they were doing. She confronts him about everything he's done. She doesn't want his help. Too bad, baby girl. Dongme will not stop looking out for you. And for the low, low price of seeing him once a month, he will leave Sumi alone. They'll have to meet once a month as long as she keeps him alive. I don't like those words in relation to him. They keep pointing to his demise, and I'm unhappy with that. And I mean, yes, it is a racket what Dongme has offered. I know this. But would I be personally upset about having to meet up with him once a month for the rest of our lives? No. Eugene reads a letter from Joseph. Domi comes down to him with some taktu from Joseph. Domi wants to read the letter, which Eugene takes as a chance to needle him a bit for not knowing how to read English. Get a grip, Eugene. He's a child. Anyway, as he reads the letter to Domi, he realizes that the Hamgyong province stamp was the same one that he saw in the trader's hotel room when Dongme was searching it. We quickly learn what that means. Wanek thought that Joseph was on Joseon's side, and it seems like that because he didn't have the letter long enough to translate it, so he just killed the man? Reasonable. He died with the cross that Eugene had carved for him as a child in his hand. Eugene goes to see him, and as soon as he uncovers his face, he falls to his knees. That man saved his life once upon a time. And they did a great job of aging up the actor. There's a voiceover while Eugene is crying over the dead man, where Eugene reads the last letter that Joseph sent him, where it's revealed that Joseph loved him like a son. And I need to pause for a sec. I know this man was a missionary, and as such, he was not made of money, but Eugene was out there hustling on the streets as a child. It was not like he was cared for by the church. I mean, I guess they could have fixed their relationship once Eugene was grown, but I'm saying that we haven't seen much evidence of him behaving as a father figure toward Eugene as a child. Like, he did save Eugene's life. I'm not saying that he didn't, but was he a father? Somehow, of course, Ishin just happens to have her palanquin carried by, and she wants to stop at the scene, but Haman will not let her out. Ishin waits in the apothecary for Hengrung to bring back news about what happened. The missionary was attacked. Dongme's right-hand goon reports to him that the man was attacked in the Japanese neighborhood. So, Dongme tells him to figure out if it was one of their own. The men at the U.S. legation investigate the murder. News comes to them that the traitor had been released just a day before the murder when they were receiving the shipment. Eugene knows who did this. Wanek strategizes how to use a letter apparently from the emperor that the missionary had in his possession to get his Minister of Foreign Affairs position. Tokmun is a little short-sighted and suggests immediately blackmailing Kojong with it, but Wanek's too smart to announce that he's the one who killed the missionary. Eugene barges into Wanek's home looking for the traitor. Wanek steps out to meet him and tries to intimidate him, but Eugene's US American, you see. He can't be intimidated easily. Eugene promises to take him down, but Wanek's like, how? The real culprit's getting apprehended right now. The man who dragged Hotaru, the psychic, by the hair arrests Dongme. All his goons try to I am Spartacus his way out of it, but Dongme knows his men will all die for this one and turns himself in. Hisong's servant runs to tell him of the ruckus in Tingoge just as Dongme is paraded through the streets tied up. Hisong stops the men to tell them to treat Dongme well. Dongme finds this all very amusing and claims he doesn't really want Hisong intervening. Eugene hears of Dongme's arrest, but immediately dismisses its legitimacy. There's just no way he could have done it when he was glad to see Eugene at Temulpo the day of the murder. So he sends out the US Army to search everywhere in Hansong for the traitor before he has a chance to escape for Shanghai or Japan. The police beat Dongme to interrogate him. He of course denies and even declares that the missionary would have been mutilated if he'd been the one to do it. But the police have a witness. It's the maid that Hina fired, and she's really getting on my nerves. One of the cops in Hina's pocket brings the info to her. Hotaru goes to her for information and comfort. Hina lets her stay at the hotel, but she will not tell her what's up with Dongme or offer any comfort. Apparently, Wanek set Dongme up because he saw Dongme carry Hina home when she was drunk. Hina would be so lucky. But what he tells the Japanese minister about the setup is that everything he does is for the good of Japan. The Japanese minister, though, is now on his hit list because he mentioned something about the men who are not either Japanese or Joseon are going to be the downfall of Japan. Wanek pulls out his trump card. The letter from Kojong to borrow money from the US will grant him power over Kojong, Dongme, Minister Allen, and Japan. Dongme is looking real rough from the interro torture. Not only is the maid willing to lie to get revenge on Dongme, the white man with whom he was meeting in Temulpo denies to have met him because Dongme wouldn't do what he wanted. So now, the cops make it clear to him. They want a name. He gives them the names of Wanek and Hayashi, the Japanese minister, but they spell it out for him. No, they want Go Sa-hong's name, Ishin's grandpa. Wanek offered the chief of police a job promotion to take the man down. So they'll kill off the Mushin society one by one until Dongme gives them his name. Absolutely devastating to Dongme kill his own men or put the family of the woman he loves in danger. Eugene gets the Hamgyong province letters in the trader's room from Hina, who can't say no to him even though the letters might be of help to Dongme, who would actually pay for them. He opens them up and finds a postal map of Shanghai. Apparently the names on the letters are the names of the missionaries. Unsure how everything fits together yet. Eugene pays the Tweedles to investigate Joseph's whereabouts before his murder. He leaves a letter for Ishin at the apothecary to tell her that he'll be gone for a bit, looking into the murder, and not to worry. Ishin reads the letter and leaves his gloves behind. News gets to Kojong that his letter for a loan from the US in the missionary's hands has been found.
Wanik himself chose to read it to him. He's there to tell Kojong that he's told the Japanese that the letter was fake. If it were real, Japan would be very angry and the US would have the upper hand over them. So, Kojong cedes to follow along for his own reign and appoint Wanik to the foreign affairs position. Also, Joseph had been meddling in the government affairs and had actually received the letter from Kojong, which is why he couldn't stick around and wait for Eugene at the legation. He had to meet with Kojong. I don't know why I ever doubted that a man of God would do something like that. Hina visits Dongme at the jail. She's there to tell him to trust Eugene, who's trying to figure out who really did this. But she's not gonna lie, things are looking dire for Dongme. The doctor who's examining the body is also in Wanik's pocket. Eugene goes to see Dr. Matsuyama. The autopsy report he's written is false. Actually, the man who shot Joseph shot him from above after shooting him in the leg. The man who shot him couldn't run, and that's why he went for the legs first. Eugene tells him to amend his faulty report for the real story unless he wants to die. He is not playing around. Hee-sung is walking about, pondering Eshin's grandpa's plea to marry her when he finds the traitor spying on the Go house. He has no idea who this man is, but he does recognize the traitor from the hotel and tries to ask him some questions, but the traitor runs away. He follows, but is stopped by some woman from the gambling den. She seems strangely insistent to stop him, so I have to wonder what she knows. Eugene goes to his office to rest a bit, but Kwansu has some news. Chosun has closed its investigation on Joseph's murder. The official story is saying that he'd forged Kojong's seal and Dongme killed him. Eugene bursts into the advisor, Jungmu's home, to tell him to change their tune, but he's steadfast, so Eugene threatens the US's might against Joseon to get justice for the missionary. I truly don't know what inspires this kind of loyalty from Eugene toward this man. As I've said before, he was a street child, but okay. He does manage to get Kyle's help, who strong-arms Minister Allen into agreeing to have the army look into it. He takes Dongme from Joseon and puts him under U.S. custody and tries to get information out of him, specifically around whether he's been keeping an eye on Ishin once he learns how he found out about the traitor in Joseon. Dongme has only one thing to tell him, though. He better be on the lookout. If he were Wanik, Eugene would be first on his list. Wanik is crashing out. His plans are falling apart, and he's starting to realize that he should have left Eugene alone. So now he's looking for leverage against Eugene and Dongme. Eugene goes to Go Sahong to tell him he's adding security to his home, but Sahong declines. He wants to face whatever the reason is that Joseon won't protect him instead. Why? Ishin learns that Eugene was in her home and tries to run after him. He'd left, but he does come back to see her. Very briefly, they don't talk. And she sees that he's gotten his gloves from the apothecary. It's not clear to me what Eugene's reasoning is to not speak with her right now, but I do think it's a good idea to not stir the pot while he's bringing so much attention to himself. Back at the legation, Domi tells Eugene that one of the men in the traitor's picture has been coming to the legation as a worker when they have too much going on. The man took the map that Eugene had kept in his desk. He's the man who brought Ishin and her parents' ashes back to the Go house. The man takes the letters to the righteous army. They're concerned that Eugene will figure out what the map means. I don't know what the map means yet. They go to Jongmun to tell him what's going on, maybe even give Eugene the benefit of the doubt. But the advisor is scared of Eugene, so he gives orders to kill him for Joseon's cause. Excuse me? Eugene has never done anything just against Joseon. He's just looking out for himself. Very US American of him. Eugene's confronted walking at night by some of Dongme's men who have been convinced by Wanik that he's the enemy. He shoots a bullet in the air to call the legation to him, but who answers the call but none other than Hee-sung, who tries to buy the men off and somehow holds his own for a bit in the fight that ensues. Dongme's right-hand goon sees this going down and calls off the men. He knows Eugene is Dongme's only hope to get out of this alive, So they all kneel before him. I will say, this man whipped out some Korean to talk to Eugene and Hee-sung. My jaw dropped. He's only ever responded to Japanese up until this point. And Hee-sung said what we'd all been thinking. Wait, you're a Joseon man? He doesn't respond, but his name in the caption says Yujo, so it seems like it. Eugene takes Hee-sung to the legation to clean him up. Hee-sung mentions having seen the traitor around Ishin's home and points out the peculiar smell he had. It wasn't opium. He knows what opium smells like. He smelled like incense. Eugene remembers something that Dongmei had mentioned while questioning him. The house of a woman where men can come and go without being noticed. Where else would fit that criteria and smell of incense? The traitor is staying at a shaman's. I recently went to this burlesque show, unrelated. It was so fun, but my friend and I were choking at the beginning. The whole place overwhelmingly smelled of incense. It was hard to breathe, but eventually it did die down, or we got used to it. It was a fun show regardless. The traitor tells the shaman why he's still in Hansong and hasn't fled yet. He wants to tell Ishin who killed her father. He owes his friend's daughter that. Too bad. Eugene sends out Mushin Society to look for him, and when they find him, he tries to hold the shaman hostage. He did not calculate very well because Yujo just plunges his blade through the shaman and him in one fell swoop. At night, Ishin calls for Sungu. She wants to convince him to help her sneak out of her home. She has to see her man. She sneaks into his hotel room, which grants her a little bit of roughhousing from Eugene, who thinks she's an intruder, as expected. He realizes who she is, and Ishin tells him that she's missed him. She wanted to stop when she saw the scene of the missionary and Eugene, but she couldn't, so now she tries to comfort him. She tells him the words of Joseph's last letter in Korean. Not gonna lie, that would make me uncomfy, but Eugene appreciated the letter, which is what matters, I guess. As they stand together, her hand on his face, someone shoots at them. Eugene's gonna go after the shooter, and much to his surprise, Hina escorts Ishin out and pretends she doesn't realize that the man she's escorting is this noblewoman. Hina also escorts all the guests of the hotel along with Ishin to the dining room. So of course, the asshole who threatened Hotaru takes this opportunity to aim a gun at Hina and have her guide him to Hotaru. Bro, just give up. Ishin follows them and helps Hina get out of her bind. When Hina knocks the gun out of this man's hand, Ishin picks it up and points it at him. Hina can't have him killed because Hotaru should get her revenge, so Ishin knocks him out with a vase to the head. Eugene manages to shoot the sniper. It's the man from the picture, the man who brought Ishin home from Japan. He takes him to the U.S. legation. He tries to figure out if he's allies with the traitor or if he works for the advisor, Dongmun. The man has a question first. Who are you to Ishin? Why are you always with her? Eugene pretends to not know anything and whips out the photo from the traitor. He's identified everyone on it, he thinks, even Songyeon, who seems to be very important, but we don't know him yet. The man tells Eugene the truth. Eugene wasn't supposed to know anything at all, so now the righteous army wants him dead. Heartbreaking, devastating for Eugene to learn that Eunsan might be behind it, so he goes to the potter. Ishin might be the next one to pull the trigger at him. When she got back to the apothecary, Ishin was escorted by the restaurant lady to Eunsan, who reveals himself to be the leader of the righteous army. He tasks Ishin to shoot whomever comes from the river and crosses the gate, who should be Eugene because he's coming from the legation to see Eunsan. And that's some BS, forcing her to choose like that. Eugene makes it to Eunsan. Ishin is posted up in the trees aiming for Eugene. Eunsan gives him a choice. He can either leave Joseon and live or die right now. The man he detained is not long after him. He's actually dragging the traitor's body with him. Eugene's not leaving Joseon this time. He wants Ishin to live, and he's going to make sure of it. Eunsan appreciates Eugene's gesture, bringing the traitor to them and letting that other man go, and lets Eugene leave. This is probably the last time they'll see each other, at least on good terms. The man, the sniper that didn't hit Eugene, doesn't want Eugene to get out alive, but Eunsan stops him. Eshin waits for Eunsan to step back inside. She asks him if the man that was dragged here was the man who killed the missionary and her parents. Eunsan confirms it, and he's like, so what if he was? Would you kill him yourself? And she's so much more level-headed than I would be, because her response is that she should have been told sooner, and she hopes that whatever decision Eunsan makes turns out better than her fury. Eunsan reports to Jongmun, asking to restore the missionary's reputation. The palace had tarnished his honor, saying that he'd faked the letter from Kojong. Jongmun sees no reason why they should go back on their word. He asks Eunsan if this is his way of getting Eugene on his side, and Eunsan has finally realized that Eugene was always on his side. But now, he's lost Eugene. The chief of police reports to Wanek that the traitor's been taken. He's surprised to learn that the Mushin Society were the ones to help Eugene on this one. He gets help because Eugene is a good boy, okay? That's why. Jongmun tries to interrogate the traitor to admit that Wanek is the leader of the operation, but he won't talk. He has family and he is afraid of Wanek. So Jongmun informs him that Joseon will revise their statement about what happened. The traitor will have been the one who forged Kojong's seal, and he will be sentenced to execution. However, he will be found dead before that can happen. He steps out, and the man who shot at Eugene comes in. He's there to stab the traitor in the stomach for what he did to them. Decrees are put all over the city announcing the change. Eugene gets a flashback to when they found the traitor. He'd wanted to tell Ishin that it was Wanek who killed her parents. Eugene doesn't let him off the hook, though. Wanek would not have been able to kill them if the traitor hadn't ratted them out. He did kill her parents. I mean, duh. He wanted to be cleared of something that he absolutely did. It is his fault. Kojong has no choice but to grant Wanek the position, which triggers a hallucination in him of Ito Hirobumi taking over the palace once he officially grants him the title. Hina gets her ex-maid brought before her, the woman who testified against Tongme. She was trying to flee, but Hina isn't going to allow that. She's going to ruin this girl's life. She never should have testified against Tongme. Clearly, not everyone in Hansong hates him. Eugene releases Tongme. He tells him all the people who helped set him free. Tongme's reaction is to say he'll find a way to repay them. Those are a dying man's words. I'm already getting teary-eyed over it. Tongme tells his men to burn the fallen members of the society. They should be honored. He makes it back to his business, where the man who hurt Hotaru is waiting with his sword. Tongme takes his sword and slashes the man where he stands. He goes back to the hotel where Hotaru runs out to hug him. There's a sweet moment where he sees Hina watching from the window, and he nods his head at her like thank you for helping him and Hotaru. Hisong plays the piano at the hotel. Hina goes to him, and they have a thinly veiled conversation about him getting married to Ishin. He can't just marry her with Eugene around, but he is starting to fall for her. They stop when they see Eugene step out on his way to the cemetery for Joseph's funeral. Eugene drinks the takju that his father had made with him, who's now in the ground. Ishin goes to Temulpo Temple and asks a woman there to light a candle for the fallen man, and she makes sure to note that he believed in God. Some real coexist vibes here, because the woman is like, the gods must know each other, and Buddha will show him the way. Ishin goes to the apothecary hoping to hear from Eugene. There's no letter waiting for her, but Eugene pulls up. He pretends not to be desperate to see her again and brings up that she was prepared to shoot him. Ishin goes to take his hand, which is not enough for Eugene, who pulls her in for the hug. Meanwhile, Dongme and Hina both sit in their respective spots, yearning for their respective love interests who are currently in each other's arms. I don't know, man. The parallels here. Is Hina in trouble? Is she also going to die before the show ends? Because these are my two favorite characters so far. Dongmun brings the news of the man that Dongme slashed to Wanik. Wanik now realizes that the Japanese minister must be at least a little bit on Dongme's side. Dongme pulls up to Wanik's house. He bears a message from Hayashi, to whom he told that Wanik had gotten hold of the certificate and pinned the blame on Se-hun. Wanik is at first unimpressed, but Dongme relays a message. Men not from Japan or Joseon will be the death of Japan, repeating the thing that Hayashi had said earlier. And that scares Wanik. Tweedledee pulls up to the US legation. He's dressed in beige, which kind of mirrors the white that Guansu wears, so he's let in without issue because he's obviously mistaken for the interpreter. This is such a silly joke. He's there to give Eugene what he found on Joseph. Eugene finds Songyeon's name on the box he brought the items in and tells Ilshik to keep this whole thing a secret. He burns the picture of the men in Tokyo from the traitor and the box with Songyeon's name on it. The traitor requested that of him. As part of the righteous army, the men must not be found out. Tweedledee goes back to the everything store where he finds Heesung requesting to rent out space in the store. The men aren't convinced, but two women stop by with the express purpose to see Heesung, which convinces Tweedledee to draft the contract to rent the man some space. Tweedledum is not as easily convinced by the two pretty ladies. Heesung runs to tell his besties at the bar he's going to write a newspaper only in Japanese, only in Korean. He's renting out the space because he's going to write a newspaper only in Korean. Eugene and Dongme don't think that it'll do well, but why would they care? The men point out that Heesung has never paid for drinks, so he dips. Eugene thanks Dongme for the drinks, implying that he should pay, but apparently when Dongme had said that he'd buy Eugene a drink for freeing him, he didn't really mean it. They leave the bar and the boys walk together, and they stop to admire a cherry blossom signaling the beginning of spring. Heesung is so sappy, I love him. Ishin writes her English school's ad following along to what one of her classmates dictates. Her classmate says that her writing is so good that it looks like a man's. What a bizarre thing to say. Ishin uses this as inspiration to work on her writing and sends Eugene a note. TBH, I've not paid attention to her writing and it could have changed. I did not care to check. Eugene invites her to see plum trees together. It was written in the back of the picture that he took from the trader that the picture was taken when the plum trees were in bloom in Tokyo, so he wants to see the trees. Ishin asks him, so what's next? In steps of love. Eugene says going fishing, which is just an excuse to hold hands. This is very cute if they were 12, but I guess being a royal or a noble person extends timelines. Anpyong goes to visit his son at the Glory Hotel, only to see that Eugene is also staying there. This freaks him out, so he runs to his wife to tell her of this terrible, terrible news. If only they knew that these two boys are basically besties. His mom goes to see Eugene. She's returning the norige. She wants Eugene to keep what happened that day from her son. She even kneels before him. This really should mean nothing to him. He was 6 when he left Joseon. I can't imagine that this is so ingrained that a 6-year-old would notice. That night, Heesung comes to Eugene's door with a cut on his hand to ask him to bandage it. Heesung lets himself in and finds the norige displayed. He recognizes it as the one his mother bought in the pawn shop. So he asks what it's doing there. Eugene tells him everything. When were you born? I want to know the day my parents died, and I had to run away from slave hunters from your family home. So, now I've got a timeline, baby. He was born on the 17th of April, 1871. The man is canonically 30, which means it's actually like 1900 because he's about to turn 31, and Korean age is 1 or 2 years older, and we know it's at least turn of the century. And this is such a small thing, but it does mean that the flag they used to bury Joseph in was the wrong version of the US flag. I have not checked the flags in the legation, but they might be too. And my prediction about the dissolution of the monarchy and hierarchy was way off. Anyway, Heesung summons the man who was his family's slave. He tells him the whole story of Eugene's childhood as a slave in the Heesung family. Dongmi had seen the two of them talking, and he pays the man to tell him the same story. Hina meets Jongmun in secret at the forge, so now we know more or less where her loyalties lie. He wants her to look into Lady Kang, who might be a leak in the Righteous Army or the Joseon government, I'm unsure. She's a spy. It may be the same woman who stopped Hee-sung from going after the traitor. And he wants Hina to get Eugene to meet him in exchange for her mother's whereabouts. Apparently, Jongmun had found her mom and was keeping it from her. Diabolical. Jongmun wants Eugene to take the position in the royal army. His way of convincing Eugene is that Insan and his people will live longer. Joseon needs a US-American man on the inside who can at least pretend to be on Joseon's side. I'm not sure why, but this is his reasoning. He offers Eugene a title or land for taking the job, and Eugene asks for a mountain on the island where he was born. I immediately assumed he wanted a title that would make him worthy of marrying a Shin, but he wants land to make his mother's dream come true of seeing her son have land. It might be a little too late anyway for Eugene to marry a Shin, because at night, Lady Cho goes to visit her father-in-law. Side note, crazy that the women move into the men's family home here. It could not be more different back home. Like, you want to marry our precious daughter? You best be moving as close as possible to her family's home. Not that you can really ever get that far on an island, but the sentiment stands. You go to her family's festivities, you go to her family for the holidays, and I literally never even thought it could be different. It was always like that at home. And it wasn't until much older that I realized that the reason I seldom saw some cousins was because they were the children of uncles and they were celebrating at their mom's family's home. Like, we really only ever got together for weddings and like baby showers and things like that. Anyway, Grandpa tells Lady Cho that he wants to marry Ishin off ASAP. Hee-sung interrupts the delivery of the marriage letter. He will deliver it himself. Ishin tries to convince her aunt to stop this, but Lady Cho will not budge. Plus, she also knows that Ishin is not getting wild boar meat when she meets with Sungu, so she needs to stop whatever's going on. So Ishin goes to the big boss. I've been thinking I'm going to live alone. And he's like, I didn't ask you what you thought. That was mad funny. When she sees her grandfather won't budge, she says the truth. She has another man in her heart. This prompts Grandpa to lock her surrogate parents in a shed. I understand that this is bad. Yes, okay, I agree. And that they might be in there for a while. But I can't help but think of the locked in one cell trope. I'm really rooting for these two. Eshin kneels outside her grandfather's door for everyone to see. It's her punishment and a way of seeking atonement. Hee-sung sees this display when he's trying to deliver the letter and kneels with her. He doesn't know what she's being punished for, but he's going to be there with her. Oh, he's so easy to fall for. She tells him what she's done, and he's like, girl, I knew. That didn't stop me from falling for you, though. I've also known many women, so don't stress that there's another man in your heart. In fact, I'm here with the official marriage letter from my dad, and I'm about to do something very bad. Lady Cho tells Grandpa about the scene outside his door. She wants no mercy on them. And I get that she's being pious, but she also wants her endless torment of not producing a male heir to end. Hee-sung tells Ishin that he has a plan that will take some time to execute, so he asks her for just a little more time. She concedes when Hee-sung's servant runs in. He's checking in on Hee-sung, who never made it back home. Hee-sung tells the man to not tell his parents anything, just that he's returned to the hotel. He then passes out in Ishin's arms after telling one of the servants to yell out loudly once he does. Stupid, but his plan works. He gets Haman and Haengnang out of the shed so that they can care for him. He takes them to dinner and convinces them to tell a story of how they took him to a doctor who prescribed medication and then carried him to the hotel. I know, Ishin is a kind soul, but she is so proud. How does she garner so much loyalty from these random men? Eugene drops off the school supplies at the school, and sees Ishin's handwriting on the poster advertising the school. He asks for her, but she hasn't been around. Obviously, she's being punished. Eugene waits for Hina at the hotel when Hee-sung arrives after him. He tells Eugene that he knows what his family did to Eugene's family, but he's not ready to apologize yet. He also gloats about something about Ishin that Eugene doesn't know yet. He won't tell him, though. He wants Eugene to be the last one to find out. He goes to his room as Hina gets to the front desk. Hina tells Eugene that Ishin is getting married soon. The letter that Hee-sung was carrying is the official letter that the groom's family sends to the bride's family. Eugene is saddened by this, and I think he can't help but assume that Hee-sung's secret is that he's getting married to Ishin soon. Eugene sits in his room thinking of his time on the beach with Ishin. She'd talked about breaking her engagement. She'd moved to Shanghai if she was disowned. But Eugene would have moved back to the US in this scenario. Girl, you're fantasizing. What the Romantic. Sungu visits Eugene at the hotel. He's there to tell him that Ishin insists on making her way to Eugene, and he's not happy about it, but he'll support her regardless of how hard that road would be. Eun-san drinks the last of the beer that Eugene got him. He's expecting to never see Eugene again. Ishin's grandpa is still big mad about the whole thing. He wants her to bring Eugene to stand before him and answer for this. Ishin claims that this really has nothing to do with Eugene. I mean, you're wrong, but I understand what you're trying to say. Like, she's trying to make her own decisions. Haman and Hengrang go to Eugene. They're there to tell him to go to Ishin's grandpa, to tell the man that Eugene will only be there for a little while. So Eugene goes. But he's going to tell the truth. He too fell for Ishin, and he reveals his origin to her grandpa. He's a slave that once met him in the forest. He's the same slave to whom he told to not get ideas above his station. Ishin tells Eugene to leave, and he does. Grandpa's compromise is that she can break her engagement, but she must stay alone for the rest of her life. And she should have told him long ago that this is what she was going to do, so he could have killed himself earlier. He will not have her marry a man born as a slave. Girl, what? Ishin is dismissed and she runs after Eugene. She doesn't know when or if she'll see him again, so they have to say goodbye. And I can't believe this didn't warrant a kiss between the two of them. Okay, we still haven't seen the two of them kiss. Then we get a whole montage of things they would do if they were allowed to be free in New York City. It's a lot more picturesque than the real New York, I can tell you that, but it's very sweet. Lady Ko Jong's mom, I think, calls Hina to the palace. She wants to know why Japan wants to circulate their currency in Choson. The currency they're proposing is only valuable in Choson, which, if it keeps circulating, will mean that the bank that makes these bills will own Choson, basically. The lady also expresses her desire to build a school for women. The men can't be the only ones worrying about the future of Choson. Speaking of Japanese banknotes, Wanik strong-arms Ko Jong into agreeing that they should circulate. I mean, does the king really have a choice if Japan is sending warships and threatening war? Dongme brings the police chief to his dojo. He wants to know why Wanik is after Lord Go. He beats up the chief of police until he gives up the name of the head of the post office, who tells him about the letter that Go Sa-hong intended to send out. Now, Dongme has 2 pieces of paper where these 2 men have traced their hands so that Dongme can write whatever he wants on them with what is essentially their signature. I've done this trick before. Now that the Japanese notes are circulating, some Japanese guy tries to pay the baker with it, but he doesn't want to take it, so he stops Dongme on his way past his shop. Dongme threatens the baker with his sword, which scares off the Japanese man. The baker thanks Dongme, but Dongme meant the threat. He better tread lightly. A new group of young freedom fighters. I don't actually know what their cause is, but I think we're supposed to think that they're parallels to Eshin's dad and his buddies. Anyway, the group is formed from some disgraced noble families who tried to kill Wanek. One of them goes to the Tweedles so he can get into the Korean army. He needs a sign-off in order to join, and he wants to join because they think that they can use the army guns for their cause. Eugene goes to the Tweedles as the young man leaves to pay his debts, but now the Tweedles don't want the money. They want an exchange. They want to barter. They want his signature instead of payment to get the kid into the military. Eugene is hesitant because he thinks that they'll get caught. Tongmoon is replacing Wonek's people in the palace. One of them is the head of palace security. He wants Seung-gu for the job since he's so morally upright and he's a gunner. Eun-san tries to dissuade him, but Jong-moon gave him what he wanted in terms of exonerating Joseph, so Eun-san owes him. Dong-mi jumps over the Go family wall. He's there to deliver the news that the letters Go Sa-hong sent were burned. He's on Ishin's payroll after all. He doesn't actually say who it is, but he does say that he's on the payroll of someone who has an interest in keeping the Go family safe. He didn't say it was Wonig, so now Sa-hong has to stop and think about it. He summons Seung-gu now that he knows that his plan is not actually hopeless from the lack of responses. Ishin sends Hina a letter to ask her to find out why Dong-mi visited her grandfather last night. That's when Dong-mi pulls up to her room to thank Hina for taking care of her by going dress shopping for her, but Hina just wants him to answer Ishin's question of why he was there last night. Dong-mi's face falls immediately. Ishin should go to him to ask him questions. He asks Hina if the engagement is over. He definitely does not want that. If it is, Ishin will go far away, and he'd definitely rather she marry someone she doesn't love. At least in this case, there's still a chance for him. Hee-sung goes to his family. He's left the marriage letter behind, and he's there to tell them of his decision to make a newspaper. But more importantly, he asks them to break off the engagement. They ask him why would he want to give up this thing that he wants the most out of the things that his grandfather gave him. And he responds that he knows. He knows what their family did to Eugene's family. I don't know how they figure out how those two are related. I don't know if they know what the heck is up. But he asks his mom to save him one more time. Hee-sung goes to the everything shop and sets up shop for his newspaper. He does not have a name for it yet, and then he goes to the gambling den. He's there to get some stories for his newspaper. He plans on listening to people's stories himself in person, which is, of course, a big draw for the ladies playing with him. Hina stops by their table to tell Esun that she must leave so she can beat her husband home. And now that they're a player short, Hina will take Esun's place. However, she spills a drink on the spy that Jong-moon told her to keep an eye on. It was an excuse to get the woman in her room. They have this exchange in Hina's room where the woman basically admits to keeping an eye on Hina because she repeats something that Hina has said, but somehow the woman is the one who did something wrong. Is it because she showed her hand immediately? Hina has decided that what she said means that the woman is jealous of her. Who wouldn't, TBH? A single woman of means? Sounds like a dream. The royal mom sends for Ishin in order to ask about the school she's attended. Sahong allows it under protest because Lady Cho pointed out how bad of a look it would be for their family to deny a royal request. Ko-jong freaks out about the solar eclipse happening today. He thinks it's a bad sign that he's let Wonik in, and now this? Tongwon tries to convince him that it's natural, they predicted it, but he's distraught. Eugene goes to the palace to accept his new post in the Joseon Royal Military. It was one of the funniest scenes in the show. You really have to watch it to understand. Eugene doesn't know how to speak formally, so Jong-moon has to coach him throughout. And Ko-jong asks him why he changed his mind about the post. And he says that Jong-moon gave him a big mountain. No notes with how that played out. While he's at the palace, he runs into Ishin. They can't speak, so he says what he means to tell her to the royal lady. Ishin knows that all his pretty words and compliments are for her, though. Clearly. The eclipse comes and Sahong sends Seung-gu and a bunch of other gunners with his letter to deliver them to their recipients without having to go through the post office. And that's where I leave you. As always, rate and follow the podcast. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Bluesky at Korean Drama Rants or KDrama Rants. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you next time with part 5 of Mr. Sunshine. Bye!